This is a tutorial for functional range conditioning, PAILs and rails of the wrist joint in extension. PAILs and rails stands for progressive and regressive angular isometric loading. Within the functional range system, we use PAILs and rails to achieve three objectives. The first is to increase range of motion or expand space within a joint. The second objective is to gain access and control of our end ranges of motion. And the last objective is to improve the health and quality of the connective tissue at the level of the joint, tendon, ligament, or muscle that we're working on. So what is wrist extension? Well, if I turn to the side here, wrist extension is a downward movement of the hand this way, and wrist flexion is the opposite, up this way. So we're going to be working on wrist extension in this downward direction like this. I'll show you two different setups that you can use for your PAILs and rails of wrist extension. Let's get into it. So when we do our PAILs and rails training, the first step is always to learn how to stretch that joint and tissue. So to stretch into wrist extension, the two options I'll give you are either going to be from the floor or an elevated surface. So in this case, I've got this mobility block. You could use a countertop. You can use a utility weightlifting bench also, whatever you find best, or we can do it from the floor, as I'll show you next. To stretch into wrist extension, I need to take my palm and place it flat on the surface like this. Now, the two options here are going to be my hand facing back this way behind me with my fingers behind the forearm. And then to increase the stretch here, I'm going to lean my forearm back this way. So I'm looking to stretch everything on this side of the forearm and this side of the wrist joint here. So that's option number one, is I can be leaning back this way, stretching into the tissue of the forearm. Option number two is to flip the hand around and do essentially the same thing. So I could have my palm this way, fingers facing forward, and I could take my forearm out over the hand in this direction to start to stretch into wrist extension. Now we're going to do the same thing on the floor. It's going to be the same setup as the block, but that gives you a few different options. If you're on the floor, your hand will just be against the ground in wrist extension. So let's get into our PAILs and rails training session. When we do our PAILs and rails training session, our direction of PAILs contraction, the progressive angular isometric, is going to be pushing the hand from extension into flexion. So I'm going to create a downward pressure onto the floor with my palm and fingers going from extension into flexion. That's going to be our progressive angular isometric. Our rails, our regressive angular isometric, is going to be opposite. I'm going to be trying to pull the top side of my hand further back towards my forearm this way. So I'll show you how we go through that. If I'm in this direction here, again, PAILs, pushing the hand down into the floor this way, and rails, I'm going to lean forward like this and try to lift my hand and fingers up off the ground the opposite direction. So any PAILs and rails session always starts with that minimum of 60-second stretch, 2 minutes if you have enough time to do that. So I'm going to place my hand down on the ground this way, and I'm going to start to stretch by bringing my forearm back in this direction. I feel this stretch in through the front side of my forearm muscles and in through the front side of my wrist, everything in this tissue here. As we stretch, we take some deep breaths in and out. Trying to deepen the stretch if we can. The stretch starts to initiate the length of tissue that we're working on. It starts to hopefully get it just a touch more comfortable in that position before we apply PAILs and rails. See, I have my fingers flat. They're not curled up here. All right, 2 more deep breaths. Last one. As a reminder, my PAILs direction, I'm going to be pushing the hand this way, so it's going to be pushing down back into the floor. Let's do our first PAILs contraction. Deep breath in. Trap some air in core tension. Start to push your hand and your fingers into the ground. So you are contracting the muscles on this side of the forearm here. Hold, keep pushing. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I forgot to mention, when we first start doing our PAILs, we're going to use anywhere from 20 to 80% effort or intensity of contraction. If you're just learning how to do this, start at the low end of intensity. If you're already good at doing this, you have really strong tissue, you can up the intensity as you go through your contractions of PAILs. Our rails, let's go into, we're going to take some core tension. We're going to take that forearm, lean it forward, and try to pull your hand and your wrist up off the ground. Fingers up and back. Hold. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Back into the stretch. Find your end range of motion. Take a deep breath in. Apply your PAILs. Push the palm, hand, wrist down into the floor like you're trying to slap the floor with your hand. Push firm. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Rails. Lean the forearm forward to the point at which you can just barely get your hand and fingertips up off the floor. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Back into the stretch. Deepen the stretch if you can. Try to find your end range of motion. Deep breath in. Hold your core tight. Squeeze the arm. Push the hand down. Up the intensity if you like to 40, 50, 60%. Hold. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Rails. Lean the forearm forward. Lift the hand, palm, fingers up, away from the floor. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Back into your stretch. Lengthen that tissue on the forearm right in through here. Deep breath in. Keep your core tight. Drive the hand, fingers, palm down to the floor. Contract the forearm. Push hard. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pull forward into your rails. Lift the palm, fingers, hand up away from the ground. Hold. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Last PAILs. Deepest stretch you can tolerate in the hand, wrist, and forearm. Deep breath in. Core, arm tight. Drive the hand down. Squeeze hard. Contract into that tissue. Press, press, press. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Last rails. Lean forward. Squeeze the backside of the forearm. Fingers, hand, palm up, up, up. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. Shake it out a little bit. So if you're new to doing PAILs and rails for wrist extension, expect that tissue to be a little sore after you do that. We're using new end ranges of motion, tissues at length that they're maybe not used to being at, and all of that is okay. When we're training, soreness is a byproduct of taking tissue and adapting it to higher levels of function. So don't let that deter you. It is well worth the changes that you'll see in active extension by doing your PAILs and rails. So that is a tutorial training session for functional range conditioning, PAILs and rails of the wrist joint in extension. Hope you enjoyed it.